Halloween was traditionally a solemn celebration which honoured the spirits of the dead and is the eve of the Western Christian feast of All Hallows Day. The day of Halloween is usually packed with fun activities for kids, which includes trick-or-treating, dressing up in costumes, carving pumpkins into jack-o'-lanterns and gorging ourselves on candy, just to name a few. However, if you look beyond the stereotypical day of Halloween, you'll find some weird and disturbing historical mysteries regarding Halloween's origins. Today with our friends at Titan Top List, let's delve into the true history of Halloween's 5 intriguing facts. Number 10. Costumes. Many of today's Halloween costumes are often based on fantasy. However, they originally began with a darker purpose. One of the earliest examples of people wearing costumes during this period comes from Hallowmas. This was a ceremony committed to praying for the dead, with people appeasing their ancestors for things like happy marriages and fertility. Even though costumes were a part of this ritual, it didn't really catch on until the Victorian era, when dressing up became mainstream after the Robert Burns poem Halloween. The Victorian era was obsessed with the idea of spirituality in the afterlife, which inspired a creepy and gothic look, creating costumes focused around ghosts and death.
Number 9. Sexy Halloween. When we think of Halloween, the first thing that comes to mind is scary, so how did this holiday start to become a sexy occasion? Dressing up as sexy nuns and cops is a common sight on Halloween, however this wasn't the case until the 1970s. So what happened to change this costume ritual? A couple things came into play, and it all started with the merging of the flamboyant cultures of the gay community, feminism, and female empowerment. Halloween took notice of these movements during the 70s and decided to capitalize on their newly found expression. October 31st was now the one day you could get away with dressing flamboyantly more than any other day.
Number 8. Poison candy. In the Halloween of 1950, many children got sick after consuming Halloween candy. It was after that fateful night, children started experiencing gastrointestinal issues, welts, and rashes. So many of them became sick that it got the attention of the FDA, who were able to trace the source of the illness to an ingredient named orange dye number 1. This troublesome ingredient was approved by the government in 1906, and extensive research discovered that the 6 types of food dyes used in the products were from the processing of coal and contained the toxic chemical benzene. Disturbingly, it wasn't until Halloween when many children overindulged on candy, causing the food dye to make them so ill, that the ingredient was found to have such a dire effect. The tainted ingredient was even found to be so poisonous that it actually killed rats. The dye was quickly banned by the FDA, with new regulations where all colouring and additives used in candy had to be disclosed on the list of food ingredients.
Number 7. Trick or treat. When the phrase trick or treat is said, the term trick is usually seen as harmless. However, this was not always the case. During the 1920s in Omaha, Nebraska, vandalism was so rampant that the local government gave 500 boys a free pass to have fun for one night only, in hopes it would reduce the destruction. In 1938, Boston gave awards to surrounding schools that had the least damage, and in 1948, one incident of rioting on the night of Halloween left one Long Island doctor's home vandalized to the tune of $100,000 in today's money. The rioting, vandalism, and racially motivated attacks eventually got so bad that in 1950, the Senate Judiciary Committee were thinking about getting rid of Halloween altogether and replacing it with the National Youth Honor Day. However, Halloween lovers weren't having a bar of it and decided to bribe troublesome children with candy, which led to the popular term trick or treating.
Number 6. Bobbing for apples. One Halloween tradition is bobbing for apples. This idea goes back to the Celtic Samhain, when they believed the dead walked on one night of the earth and divination done on that night would be particularly effective. People from that time believed that an apple peel thrown on the ground by a single woman would show her the first initial of her future husband's name, and that magic on Halloween's was infinitely more powerful. Because apples at the time were closely tied to female power and fertility, bobbing for apples became a modern tradition of channeling the wisdom of the dead. In some instances, girls would mark apples, and whenever marked apples were chosen, would foretell their romantic future. Apples were also a symbol of rebirth and lasting life, flourishing in the fall and reborn again in the spring. To check out the final 5 Halloween facts, click on the link to see Titan Top List video.